And this is a roll-in short. We're talking today about a potential likely, very likely in the future MP created back in 2013 by a woman who was called Elizabeth Young Bruhl. Bruhl sounds a lot like gruel. Anti-white as all hell. She authored a book titled Confronting Prejudice, Childism Against Children. And of course, this is supposed to work the exact same way. And this is how they build their meme pathogens, one on top of the other, taking advantage of the MPs that you are already infected with. MP meme pathogen is just an anti-white idea that you were infected with at some previous state or that you are yet to be infected with. Perhaps others knew of it or were infected with it. Of course, they have already tied to childism, structural childism. It builds upon the primary tool, the primary weapon, the Ring of Sauron that took down Western civilization, which is, of course, the concept of racism, which is why we never use racist or racism ever. It is the Ring of Sauron. You cannot wield it. Only the evil can wield it. Ageism, of course, and this, I believe, when created, had very little traction, largely because it wasn't needed. But now with the incremental steps that anti-whiteism has made, especially with pedo-prepping, it becomes increasingly likely that people will fall for this new meme pathogen, and increasingly likely that anti-whites will put it to good use. How do you know that your little boy or little girl doesn't want to watch a grown man dance in stripper clothing, in the stripper clothing of a woman? How do you know that they don't want to do that? How do you know that they don't want to see, your little boy or little girl doesn't want to see a nude man, or doesn't want to see a nude man pleasure himself? How do you know that? Well, they're going to make the argument that you won't know until you allow your child to sample these things. And if you object to your child or other children sampling these things, then you will be considered childist, that you will be practicing childism, that you will be discriminating, that you will not be allowing the child to access his or her or its human rights. I guess we're going to have to stop calling them human rights because some children are it. If a child can decide whether or not he is a little boy or a little girl or neither or something else, and force you by way of the state to accept those ideas, then this will be the tool that will ultimately enable anti-whites, particularly of the pedo-prepping variety, to get access to your children and to have the power and authority of the state. So even though this was created back in 2013, I believe, by Young Gruel, even though it was created by her, coined by her in 2013, it really is inchoate today. It's nascent today. It's just beginning. There is a potential there. And that is why I wanted to bring it to your attention. They will use this, as always, to mislead folks, to take advantage of misled conservatives who are misled by their leadership all the time, to ignore where we are being attacked, to ignore where we are being harmed, and therefore how we are being harmed. Remember, just as an aside, when you refuse to acknowledge that you are being attacked on the basis of your birth, that you are white, or that these norms in Western civilization, particularly the norms between parent and child, and the respect that society has had traditionally for the parent-child relationship, when you are objecting to those things, you are properly objecting to a race-based attack on Western kind, white people. If you do not state that you are defending yourself on those grounds, then it is akin to refusing to protect your face in a boxing match because you find it somehow distasteful or immoral to not protect or to protect your face. And so you continue to protect your ribs and sternum and belly from the blows of your victimizer. If you do not acknowledge where we're being attacked, you cannot defend yourself. The misled conservatives, the misled Republicans, the misled patriots, they're going to be told to defend against the attack of childism, which is an attack on the norms of Western civilization, which means it is an attack on Western kind. They are going to tell you to defend against it with slogans like family values. Well, the anti-whites will use the MP and very powerful tool of moral relativism to easily undermine family values. You need to defend against this as an attack on Western civilization, as a race-based attack. You are not engaged in a race-based attack when you defend against a race-based attack. It is moral to point out when someone or an ideology or viewpoint is anti-white. It is moral to point it out, as moral to point it out as anti-white, as it is moral to point out a race-based attack that is anti-black when it is attacking black people. The anti-whites are going to say in these attacks and their use of childism that children are being oppressed, suppressed, exploited, and then this to sever the final threads of parental authority over their children. You're already seeing it now. Walls are being torn down between parent and child, walls that we need to defend as norms of Western civilization, because that will compel the attacker to defend the erasure, the white erasure of all things Western, of all things white, which of course includes you and me. If conservatives, misled conservatives, misruled conservatives, if they attempt to defend on abstractions, as has been the case for many generations now, they will lose to childism. They will lose to the anti-whites. And they will take another giant leap closer to pedo-prepping, to exposing children to the most disgusting and anti-white ideas, dances, performances, readings, and puberty blockers, hormone blockers, surgery, etc. Acknowledge where this attack comes from and what its aim is to accomplish by pointing out that it's anti-white. That's where Western civilization, Western norms come from, white people. You acknowledge that, and then you will stop these SOBs from accessing the children. Roll out.